Well, here we are again. Welcome to the Bald Headteacher Podcast, which we're going to do as a bit of a two-parter with my special guest, Dr. John Patterson, because we're going to address this huge, divisive topic of SEND. We're really going to get into the nitty-gritty, believe me. Don't forget, if you'd like to listen to previous episodes, the one with our Ukrainian friends, the one with Kevin and Jill from An Hour for Others, and just go to the Bald Headteacher channel on YouTube, subscribe while you're there. They are great listening, they really are. And remember, we want you along with us. We're trying to build a movement together. We're trying to make the world a better place for our children. And we're really trying to think about the future in a different way. Something very important is happening on Monday that in the world of SEND. We've got a white paper we think is going to be announced on Monday by the government. So what we decided to do, what I've decided to do is to talk about that first. And I'm going to bring John in on that now because it is such a huge moment in the world of special educational needs and education. I'm going to introduce you, John. Dr. John Patterson.
Thank you, sir.
We've been working so well together, haven't we?
For many years.
Many years.
It's been wonderful and beautiful.
John, it is freezing in here.
Absolutely.
I am absolutely freezing.
We're just showing we're northern men, we can take the heat and the cold as well.
This is where you work at the moment?
It is indeed. It keeps me awake, believe me, especially when the fingers go blue. But it's all part and parcel of working for the faith, yeah.
Yeah. Well, massive respect. So, John, I first met you, I would think we're probably talking about maybe 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And for the viewers, it was really a fantastic thing because we had a pupil, didn't we, who had a dual placement.
Yeah.
Lily, fantastic girl. And she was doing part-time with my school and part-time with you here at St. Vincent School for the Blind. Mm-hmm. And we got to know each other. We actually took her and some of her pals to Ypres, didn't we?
Days. Yeah.
On a tour of the battlefields and it was just that's from at the start of a great relationship, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was start of a great relationship, as friends, but it was a great start of real innovation, trying things, piloting things, leading on things where VI young people who are often left out got an opportunity. So that was the real big beginning. The lovely thing was when we went, we took the chief executives of the RNIB, if you remember, and Blind Veterans UK. We took the two big leads and said, watch this. We came along and visually impaired young people led that wonderful event all around the battlefields with the first gas attack that made many soldiers blind. And you know what? It's not really progressed much further than that in all that time. A lot is needed.
Yep, and we'll talk about that in due course, no doubt. I think maybe what I shall do to start with is do a little bit of an explainer around this. Why are we getting a white paper? What are the problems? Where has this crisis come from? So let me just start by, because we may have people listening to this podcast who aren't very well up on the legislation and the minutiae of that. And really, the legislation changed in 2014, and it was a significant piece of legislation. And what happened was that the power very much was put into the hands of parents. From 0 to 25, a individual package of support could be attached to a child to ensure that they got the right guidance and support and educational whatever for their right up until they were 25 years old. At that time, and I get the figures right here, at that time there were around about 230,000 children who received what became known as the Education and Healthcare Plan. And as the years have progressed, that figure now has escalated to 638,000 as of last year, 166% increase. And in addition to that, we have far more children being assessed that require support in schools who may not receive that funding, but schools are having to adapt and address their curriculum as a result. Now, I'm very aware that I'm going to be speaking very much as an educator here, because, that is my experience over the last 25, 35 years. And I'm very aware that parents feel very strongly about this. And I appreciate that they may disagree with some of the things I'm going to say, but I am going to talk more here from the position of an educator. And these are some of the consequences of this huge escalation and rise in this legislation that occurred at that time. So the first thing is, it is money. Basically what's happened is there just isn't enough money left. There's an insufficient funding for school leaders, and what it's happened is that they're constantly engaged in audits with finance teams due to the pressures on the levels of teaching assistants, the specialist teachers and services. The notional funding, which is in school budgets, is simply not enough, and it penalises the more inclusive schools. The mechanism, it just doesn't work anymore, and it's also very adversarial. It's leading to stress, it's leading to upset for all. Related to this is a real demoralizing bureaucracy that's come up against applications for educational healthcare plans, for top-up funding, for weekly consultation requests, added to understandable accountability expectations now on schools to provide an excellent education, adaptive education for all of our pupils. And schools really are finding this very, very difficult to release special educational needs coordinators so that they can manage all this paperwork. Head teachers' time is increasingly being taken up with meetings, with tribunals, with mediation. It's taking them away from the leadership of staff, of the leadership of their curriculum, the leadership of their school community. Expectations of parents, understandably, have risen. Many of reports being in a battle with the system. They regularly bring that anger and anxiousness and stress into schools. This, I would argue, places unreasonable expectations on school leaders. It compromises the efforts of school leaders to create harmonious and productive partnerships with parents. As too often, schools are unable to meet those expectations. So that leads to conflicts. And in more recent years, what we're seeing is a massive increase in official complaints. And it takes time and energy away from the other duties that would benefit the pupils, all pupils in the school, not to mention the collateral stress to the wider school community. And I would also say that the need now, the severity of need in mainstream schools is affecting all socioeconomic areas, all income groups, all geographic areas. And as we'll probably get onto, the whole world, actually, this is right across every country in the world now. There's simply not enough special school places to accommodate the growing number of children, and it's affecting the education of everybody. And my experience from, obviously I'm still working with head teachers and with schools, is that it is quite a regular occurrence now for classes to be evacuated if a child is dysregulated, throwing things around the classroom, turning tables over. It's now regular occurrence for staff to be coming home with bruises and so on because of the physical injuries inflicted by pupils. And that need is felt, what I say is a kind of moral injury, that teachers are going home, they think they're not doing enough. They think they've got to do more because there's so many children who need that help, but I haven't got the resources, I haven't got the energy, I haven't got necessarily those kind of levers of support that I require to adequately support these children. And they feel therefore more demoralized as a result. And we're just getting into this massive vicious circle.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a fair explanation?
With you on everything you've said, my experience has been much the same.
Yeah.
I've got a strong view on that to give a quick reflection.
Yeah.
If I may.
Go on.
So it's funny, we went back to the battlegrounds. So I'll give a little link to the battlegrounds, if I may.
Yeah.
You and I have been in the trenches for many years. And when that whistle blows or that AI generated sound, whatever it is, you're going over the top into the same sticky mud and the same bullets. They're going to be flying at you. The white paper, the government, you mentioned voice work. The idea will give parents a choice. I don't believe they really meant that. I don't believe they really meant that. Neither with the white paper. It's the same old story in my experience. They've made a decision before they give this false sense of inclusion for your views, because when the views come up to them, they don't actually answer them. The white papers I've seen, I've been involved in a number of those. They made the decision before. And we're seeing the impact now in exactly the areas you talked about. What they're hoping for is the problem is dealt by head teachers in their schools with existing monies. And people like you and I, who did try to do our best, did the dual placement. Because there was no money. Let's think of something else. They're hoping that that issue will disappear and be dealt with somewhere else. And it's too late now, because we're at a stage now where action must be taken, and it needs money. You're right. I like the message here, you know, that the impact that you're talking about. Head teachers are taken away for tribunals, for documentation. I actually believe that they've made it so flippin' difficult that so many people give in. They give in. And the parents that are fighting for their children are fighting against barrier after barrier after barrier. And many, because they're living in communities, they're struggling with so many things, they cease.
Yeah, the give-in thing is a big point, and it's important here. It's very easy to get into the habit of apportioning blame, and I really don't want to apportion blame, but we've seen this, that councils will give in that it's an easier thing to do to be able to actually give the assessment as requested and make sure that a placement is changed or that kind of thing. Schools will do the same. And we've come to a point now where everyone's just exhausted.
Yeah, I agree.
Everyone is just exhausted. Now, let's have a think, because we've seen, or I've seen on social media this week, there's been a bit of a leak, I believe, from the government to various media organisations. They've chosen which ones that they've leaked it to, and that's caused quite a lot of upset already. Everything is pointing to this becoming a really bitter battle from next week onwards. Now, of course, the white paper is only a white paper. It's not a green paper. It's only there for consultation and so on. But already you can see the battle lines being drawn. How do we change the narrative? What I want to do is change the narrative away from war, battle, you know, this, that, my case, to something which is actually much more consensual, much more, let's work out this together. How do we come around the table and find some agreement and find some common ground?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think a starting point, do you remember the late, great Ted Ragg? Is it? Yeah, the last Labour, he was informing them, and he was saying things that they didn't like, so he disappeared. Then we've got the late, great Sir Ken Robinson. He was saying things that they didn't like. It's about exactly what you say. How are we going to work this out together? The lack of understanding from that distant government in London that want this one-off parachuted in idea. This will work everywhere. No, it doesn't. You and I well know parts of Liverpool are completely different, let alone parts of Manchester or Birmingham. It's the local intermediary institutions, the local people that are going to solve that local problem. But their lack of understanding is this. You need to invest in young people with disabilities. You need to invest the money now in unique and individualized ways. Otherwise, and it might seem big, otherwise the projection is a lifetime on the NHS. The money spent now is really a cost saving if you look at it properly, but they're not listening to the people who've been through that loop. They're not listening to the regimental sergeant majors that know their community, and that is key.
Yeah. I read a report 2 or 3 months ago called Breaking the Cycle, a Blueprint for SEND Reform. And it contained a lot of things I agreed with. One of the things that I really agreed with it, and they used it in euphemisms on several occasions, but basically this concept of early intervention. And I'm absolutely, I've seen this in various reports and various documentations. It comes through all the way through. Now, one of the worst decisions made by recent governments, in my opinion, was closing the children's centres in 2010, 2011, 2012. And as you know, we worked unbelievably hard with our community and with our governors to keep ours open.
Yeah.
And goodness me, what a fantastic decision that turned out to be. But that was hard to keep it open. The majority were closed. My view, and I'd be interested to see what you think here, is if early intervention, and the government agree with this, by the way, early intervention is the right way to try to support children as quickly as possible and give families that sense of hope and support and guidance and the rest of it. My view is that those places to provide that early intervention should be relaunched family centres, children's centres. They should be, as you just said there, in the community with the people who've got the stripes, who know what they're talking about. And if we can do that, what you can then do is you can build this sense of trust, shared commitment, shared understanding early on, when those children are small, when the families tend to be more receptive to school intervention and so on. And then you can work out what the right provision is for the child at that time, bearing in mind that they've got a lot of time to grow and a lot of time to change and so on. What do you think?
I am wholeheartedly with you again. Yeah. I know a guy in Liverpool who's actually seeking to do that and to purchase buildings for that very purpose, and one of them's in Anfield. Let's have a chat about that later.
All right.
But I do believe in the early intervention, and from what the children are showcasing they're either interested in or have a strength in. You and I have met many children. You can, do you know what? Your strength is this. Let's focus on that. And I think that needs quite a culture change in schools, where we push down the Ofsted tick boxes as literacy and numeracy. Do you know what? Let's focus on that you're really good at X, Y, Z. We need a lot more of that. And I think the children's centres is a space to develop things like that.
Yeah. Well, you put your finger on another thing I wanted to mention, which is this idea of this deficit model. We have to flip this, that for the last sort of 10, 15 years, we've been talking about special educational children in terms of what they can't do. So you're starting with a deficit model instead of thinking what they can do. And the problem with the deficit model is that you're always looking to fix it. It's something that has to be fixed. Children have to be fixed. Instead of saying, well, actually, they have, learning difficulties, or they've got needs, but they've often got superpowers as well. They've got things about them. Particularly, the amount of children that I've had in my schools and taught in the schools who've got autism, they've got unbelievable talents and gifts. Something we should be starting with that, instead of this sort of discussion that goes on and on about the negative elements of special educational needs. And I know, again, that's possibly a little bit utopian, but I truly believe we have to start from what they can do, not what they can't.
I agree with you. There was you're making me be reminded of a wonderful document that came out of Liverpool. It was Faith Volunteering in the northwest of England by Monsignor John Devine. And it was published by the Northwest Development Agency. And what they found out, lo and behold, Catholic communities, the church, the local club were doing immense activities. You must have been to the little coffee shop, the girls giving out the clothing, massive piece of work. Linking into that type of activity with the strengths that young people have, it's already there. We need to be picking up on things that are been there for a very long time, but being ignored. Those things, Liverpool's one of the best places to actually pilot that. That's why, what was his name? He put in Big Society.
David Cameron.
Yeah, he put it into Liverpool first, but it failed to embed because they missed out the things that are already established. They put lots of activity into city learning centres and the like, instead of going into the communities and actually truly listening to community voice, truly listening, not just doing it as a tick box exercise.
So on Monday, there is a real problem. There is a real problem to be solved because there is a 6 billion black hole. That's what came out of the budget, the Rachel Reeves budget, that there's pretty much a 6 billion black hole. that if we continue to fund SEN to the same degree as we are now, that's the kind of money we're talking about, and it is increasing. And what I think I'd just like to do is we have to take some responsibility, all of us in society. It is no good just thinking that we can continue to fund it all to the same degree that we have now, and that there'll be somebody else who will sort it all out for us. We have to take some responsibility. So let me just go through the various pressure groups, okay? The various groups that I'm afraid all have to take some responsibility. So first of all, councils. Mm-hmm. Now, they're working in a broken system. I completely get that. But I do feel that too often the white flag is raised. So even faced with very, very clear assessment decisions with the evidence that really, really is very obvious, councils take the easy option and they rubber stamp applications and they perpetuate this I know my rights culture that go in. Yeah. Shout the loudest, you will get. The turnover of staff is far too high in councils. The quality of education plans, I'm afraid, is too poor often. And I do think that councils, they're happy to encourage it is a devastating waste of people's time spent on paperwork, replying to consultations, completing applications, forwarding things. It's grinding schools to a halt. It really is. And ironically, it's those schools that are most engaged with their communities, those schools that are the most inclusive, that tend to suffer the most.
Yeah.
Councils, tell me, what do you think about it?
Well, I'm with you on most of the points. Personally, I'm sick to death of the government's 6 billion black hole. I don't believe the government statistics or anything anymore. I have no trust in them. Okay. And it's their responsibility now. They keep kicking the pan backwards. Oh, no. You're in charge, boys and girls, and you've been in charge for a long time. It's your duty now. Your duty now. I feel very strongly about that. I agree with you. Responsibility must be taken. I'm sick of the can being kicked down the road that way as well. You're right. What I do think needs to be done is councils and nationally, let's look at some serious good best practice. Let's go and take pilots that really work. And then work, it gets outcomes for children and it can demonstrate. So you and I know some really brilliant projects that we've seen that work. Yeah. But what happens is you get X amount of funding to try something and then they remove the money. Yeah. How many times have you seen that happen?
Well, that's
children's centres.
Yeah, it's the long-term thinking.
So this government right now, please stop looking backwards and blaming. I'm sick of hearing them arguing in question time like they're about 5 years old. Get a grip. You're in charge now. Start listening to the people that are around you that really know their stuff. Start talking to the education regimental sergeant majors, the NHS regimental sergeant majors, the people who know their communities. Generally, they're not doing it.
Well,
the white paper, will be the same old, wrapped up in a same old. It will be.
Let's do politicians now, because they were one of my groups. Okay, so this is what I'm saying about politicians. That my criticism would be the same as it is for any administration that has to work within a 5-year cycle. This is the problem, that as we are seeing now, each government ends up being a marginal variant on the previous one.
Yeah.
So we're not thinking long term.
Yep.
Politicians, what they want to do is they want to effect some sort of change to provide the politician with a legacy, a sense that there's an impact that I've created there. But there's an understandable desire to take on the demand from parents, because clearly, as a politician, you can't go against parents because they're your principal set of voters. So what happens is we just throw more money at it in the hope that it'll keep people quiet for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Hush money, Dane Gelt.
So I mean, I'm being very, very honest here. That's politicians, parents, and again, I'm going to say it again. I don't want to be blaming parents, but we have got a culture. We talk about culture. There is a culture now of what I would call parental outsourcing that's become just accepted. Parents immediately go to the state wanting an answer straight away. and not only asking an answer, demanding an answer, and they're often in competition with lots of other parents who themselves are demanding an answer. And I don't know about you in your time as a principal, but I used to hear a lot of parents who come to me in my office and they would say, thing is, I don't care about other children. I'm caring about my child because I'm fighting for my child. And I would say, that's fine, but in the end, we are a community. We have to, if there's a pool of money, it has to be shared out, you know? And the problem is that schools just can't cope with that demand at the moment. And I think it's not healthy for children, because children are caught in the crossfire of this sort of battles and fights and the rest of it. Don't know if you read Michael Sandel's A Tyranny for Merit. It's The Tyranny of Merit. It's just incredible book. He reflects on the word deserve, that it's been kind of misappropriated, that it's been traduced into a right. So deserve equals a right, but we all can't deserve everything because there simply aren't enough resources in the world. So that's my point. It's not blaming parents, but parents have been caught up in a culture of individualism and of, it is my right to have something and I will fight until I get it. What do you think?
I do think that as well. Yeah. They've been pushed down that trajectory indeed. And I've met the same. VI, visual impairment, is a pretty unique field in that it's such low incidence, affects the whole family. The whole family. It's one model that, if you can look at VI as one of the most marginalized, you could possibly share best practice with disability groups. But I agree with you, parents have been pushed into that demanding. It's a hard one, but I think you gave an answer within it, and I agree with you on that as well. The longitudinal picture must be looked at. How many times have you seen a change in government and you go, here we go, they're going to come in with their model for education. And some minister stands up who was a minister, I don't know, last week of transport and the week before of something else. And they go, we're going to do this for education. You go, oh, please. And all of those new changes hit us yet again.
No, the thing is,
it's the longitude. Can we just stop with something? Listen to, I'm being a bit of a parrot. Speak to the people who know, have experienced it, and say, this is what you need to put in. And all of you government dudes need to start looking at all of our children and all of our parents. That's
yeah. What about pressure groups? So SEND pressure groups I'm talking about here, and many, all laudable advocates for parents and do great work, particularly for parents who have no voice or little voice or need support. I just wonder whether we've gone a little bit too far in that the view that they see schools and councils as being almost institutionally heartless, dismissive, not wanting to come together. So then you get this sort of battles and fights and it becomes the norm. And again, the demands that are placed on schools sometimes are just unreasonable given the resources they have.
At some point, I don't think parents, in my experiences, some parents realised the decisions, we're trying our best. We don't have the money. The people above us, those ministers, faceless people, they're the people who can...
Got on cold.
Yeah. Come on, keep us on our toes.
Yeah.
It's them that is decide whether, not us. What needs to happen is, the devolvement, if you like, of that funding into communities. Right, everyone, this is what we've got, and this is how we can work together. That's the way to do it.
Well, I said one of my thoughts about the future would be, because parents quite rightly are going to look at what happens next week, because whatever happens we've already been given a bit with the leaks that a lot of that authority is going to be taken away from parents regarding their involvement in the funding and the plans and so on. It appears to be that's what's going to happen simply because of the issue that they've got to cut the money. Where I would say is that we need to put parents in on those sort of governance level.
Yeah.
So definitely communities working out the best way to use the funding, but parents involved in that process. That's the only way I can see of squaring that. School leaders and system leaders, can I be a little bit critical of them now? Okay, because we're talking here about we need change. Monday's going to provide, hopefully, some change. And let's be optimistic. We want that change for the better. Well, school leaders are all part of that change as well. And this is a little bit upsetting for me because as a head teacher of sort of 20, 25 years, I always considered the school an inclusive school. Partly, I think, because of the history with my brother, and I've grown up with, a disabled sibling. It was always my modus operandi that I would accept all children, irrespective of their disability, and I would do the very best I could to make sure that we adapted our education, our settings, and our provision for those children. But it wasn't for everybody at that time. I was a bit of an outlier back in sort of 2002, 2003. The highly competitive culture of outcomes meant that there were an awful lot of school leaders and an awful lot of schools that said, that school down the road will take them, we can't.
I've seen it, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And things have tightened up a little bit now, that's true. Things are a little bit more, and Ofsted now are coming up, inclusion is part of their, everything is front and centre, SEND pupils, belatedly, but importantly, that's happened. Now it's a bit more difficult. But I think school leaders have got to change as well. What do you think?
I agree with you. Yeah, you and I saw a lot of that. I agree with you. Some stories that you just, really? However, that's where I think our split placement was quite unique. What I am a big believer in specialist schools, specialist provision. For some children, it's absolutely the right place. VI is one of when you can see that need the most, in my experience. But that wonderful space where for instance, Braille, you're typing away on a Braille, you're the only child in the classroom. So you feel a little bit out of it. However, you're in a school like St. Vincent, and everybody's on a Braille. Fantastic. Learn your Braille in a specialist provision. But then that dual placements where you can spend time together, that is something that has not been explored properly. And I think that is a way forward. Specialist provision centres with the deep knowledge takes decades to learn all of because every child's VI is unique to them. Unique to them. Everybody's disability really is unique to them. You need to be decades in that area to learn as much as you can around all the different specialisms. So you have your specialist provision and you work between. That is certainly a model I'd like to see of best practice to be developed. And we know our stuff there. I'd like to see that.
Anyway, I'm hearing talk about uniqueness. I didn't know that you're a biker and you were a boxer.
Yeah, that's why my nose is like that. So I've got 4 different black belts, funnily enough. 4. And
when was this, in your 20s?
20s and 30s. 40s was starting getting beaten to death, so I thought I'm getting a bit old. But yeah, judo particularly is my favourite. Full contact karate. Was sparring partner for Albie Bimson, Terry McElhinney, a lot of the boxing. Kevin Toohey, Alfie Lewis. Yeah, Liverpool's quite a place to get about and try martial arts.
I'm very impressed, John. I'm very, very impressed.
I want the man who gave him them scars.
Okay, so let's just conclude this sort of, it's almost like a one-off episode, really, thinking about next week. John, what are your hopes and fears, I suppose, for this white paper and what it might mean for the sector?
My hopes is they've actually listened to people. My fear is they won't have. Well, same old horse, different colour. That's it. So I look forward to I don't look forward to hearing it, to be honest with you. I look with some trepidation, and I will be grinding my teeth more than likely on Monday.
I think I'm open to wanting it to be something where we can come together.
Yep.
We have to reduce the financial costs. There is no other way around it. It is not fair on the rest of the country. It's not fair on everybody who lives here for these costs to continually spiral out of control. So we have to reduce the money. But in doing so, I wish that everybody could just come around the table and be kinder and be more compassionate and be understanding of each other's pressures and difficulties. Because in the end, there's a lot of children that need the support here. And these kind of fights and wars and battles are just not going to go anywhere. We've got to move the dial away from that. So thank you, John.
Thank you.
That was a great conversation about what's going to happen next week. We're going to have a little break, and then we're going to come back for a second episode. Also around SEND, but we're going to be a little bit more international. We're going to be a little bit more reflecting on our own personal journeys.
Absolutely lovely. Look forward to that.
Thanks, John. See you later.